Warzone Season 3 Reloaded update, there's been a lot of weapon changes, so in today's video, I got you guys with the top 5 long-range meta loadouts to use in Warzone 3 Season 3 Reloaded. We'll be going through each weapon and each attachment that you guys should be using, especially after all these weapon changes. So first up on this list is the LMG that I've been using like crazy, and I honestly didn't want to believe how good it was. Somebody came into my chat and told me to use it, so I gave it a try, and that is the DG58 LSW. Jumping into the first attachment, we got the Cass's Brake for horizontal recoil control and firing aiming stability. This muzzle right here is probably one of the best to use on most of your long-range weapons if you're not going to be using a suppressor. The only negative to this thing is the ADS speed, but if you're using a long-range weapon, you don't really care too much about ADS. That brings us to our next attachment. That is the Woody Long Barrel. Now this gives us aiming idle sway control, bullet velocity and range, recoil control, and gun kick control. This adds 15% to our effective and minimum damage range, and also 18% for our bullet velocity. Next up, we got the recoil reduction butt plate for gun kick control and recoil control. And then for this build specifically, we have the Bruin pivot vertical grip for gun kick control, vertical recoil control, aiming idle sway, and firing aiming stability. And something that I personally like to do a little bit different is add high grain rounds to this build for bullet velocity and damage range. This gives us a plus 15 across the board for effective damage range, minimum damage range, and bullet velocity. This literally turns our bullet velocity into 1194. So if you want to be beaming kids from across any of the maps, go ahead and put on high grain. Now obviously this does add a little bit of recoil to the weapon, but if you preferred, you could take off high grain and add something like the Jack glassless optic. I'm telling you right now, this DG beams. Looking at a 38.6 meter effective damage range, a 38.6 meter minimum damage range, and a 1194.2 bullet velocity. But nonetheless, this is the specific build that I'm rocking with the DG58 LSW, so go ahead and give it a try. Let me know what you guys think. Next up on this list is an AR that I do not see enough people talking about for some odd reason, but that's the MCW. This thing actually caught another buff in the recent update, so I decided to give it a try, and this thing actually beams. So getting right into the attachments for this thing, we're using the VT7 Spirit Fire suppressor for recoil control and bullet velocity and range. Next up, we got the 16.5-inch MCW Cyclone Long Barrel for bullet velocity and range, aiming idle sway, and firing aim stability. This is honestly one of the best barrels in my opinion. This gives you 15% for effective damage range and minimum damage range, and then 18% for bullet velocity. You could try to switch it out for something like the Mammoth Heavy Barrel or even the KR Midnight 13-inch barrel, but I definitely think you should use the 16.5-inch MCW Cyclone barrel. Next up is our optic. We got the Jack glassless optic. Pretty simple. It's a nice clean optic, and it gives you firing aiming stability. And if we jump into the range, you can just see, if you haven't used it already, this is how clean the optic is. Makes the gun super stable when you shoot it, super easy to see, nice and clean. Of course, we got the 60-round mag, and instead of using an underbarrel, we're actually going to go with the RB Regal Heavy Stock. And the reason for that is this gives us gun kick control and recoil control, and when we look at the stats, this gives us negative 12% for recoil gun kick and negative 8 for horizontal and vertical recoil. If we were to use something like the Bruin Heavy Support Grip, that would only give us negative 10% for recoil gun kick and only 8% for horizontal recoil, but a plus 4% for vertical recoil. If you're going to use this specific build, trust me, use the stock instead of the underbarrel. It just, this gun already doesn't move, but with the stock, it really has no recoil. Super easy to control, fun to use, and it hits really hard. Now with this build right here, we're looking at a 36.8 meter effective damage range, a 58.3 meter minimum damage range, and a 900.6 bullet velocity. Next up on this list is a weapon that I feel like has been a part of the meta mix for quite a while now, and that's the BP50. Jumping into the attachments, we got the VT7 Spirit Fire suppressor for recoil control and bullet velocity and range. We got the Lore 9 Heavy Barrel for bullet velocity and range, gun kick control, recoil control, and firing aiming stability. Next up, we got the 4-bearer Heavy Stock for recoil control and gun kick control. Of course, we got the 45-round mag, and I personally, because the BP50 is so easy to control, I have on high grain rounds. I personally don't mind the iron sight on the BP50. I actually like it, but again, to each their own. You could switch this out to however you like. You could take off high grain, go with the Jack glassless optic or whatever optic you choose. Maybe take off the muzzle, go with high grain rounds, just whatever you guys prefer. I definitely suggest giving this build a try, and let me know what you guys think of it. Now, if we look at the stats for this specific build, we're looking at a 19.4 meter effective damage range, a 49 meter minimum damage range, and a 1094.1 bullet velocity. Next up on this list is a fan favorite, the SVA 545. This is another one that I feel like has been a part of the meta mix for quite a while. If we jump right into the attachments, we have the VT7 Spirit Fire suppressor. And honestly, I tried to not put the suppressor and then put on high grain rounds. I just didn't like the way the SVA kind of sounded and kind of felt without a suppressor. Next up, we have the STV Precision Barrel to give you a little bit of recoil control and the max bullet velocity and range possible. Next up, we have the Jack glassless optic, and then we're going with the Bruin heavy support grip for the underbarrel, and then a 60 round mag. Now, one thing I do like to do with this build is sometimes I'll take off the optic and I'll put on high grain rounds. That puts your bullet velocity at 1080, which means you'll be able to beam kids from across the map. But either way, to each their own. As always, give one of these builds a try and let me know what you guys think of them. And if we look at the stats with all of these attachments, we're looking at a 37.5 meter effective damage range, 61.2 meter minimum damage range, and a 939.6 bullet velocity. Next up is another AR that I don't see enough people talking about. Rightfully so, though, for reasons that we'll get into in just a second. I did still want to mention this AR, though, because it absolutely beams. For this first attachment, we got the VT7 Spearfire suppressor. We got the Creo 6 match barrel for max bullet velocity, recoil control, and range. Of course, we got the Jack glassless optic. I don't know if you can tell by now, but this is the best optic that you should be running for your guns. And instead of an underbarrel, we got the RB Adel assault stock. And then this is where I was saying that rightfully so, not enough people are talking about this. It's probably because there's only a 40 round mag to it. If you could get more bullets in this gun would be a problem. Now, if we look at just the damage profile on this thing, it's got a 49 headshot damage and 38 for upper and lower torso and 32 upper legs damage. That is insane. Trust me, this thing hits like a truck. We're looking at a 46.4 effective damage range, 57.6 minimum damage range, and a 819.6 bullet velocity. But that is a specific build that we're rocking for the Holger 556. Now, the last long range weapon that we got for you guys today is a bonus one that I kind of wanted to throw in there. You know I had to throw a sniper in there. So I'm sure you could tell by now, but that is the Moore sniper. Ever since this thing dropped, I have been in love. With that being said, let's get right into the build. With this one specifically, this is the build that you can actually shoot through objects with from quite literally anywhere. Now, at the time of this recording, I do not know if they actually nerfed this barrel, but with this build specifically, you can go ahead and give it a try. Let me know what you guys think. We got the photonic charge barrel, which increases the damage at full charge and velocity at full charge, and the ADS speed. Now, if you have not used it by now, this is basically all you have to do. You aim in and you charge up the barrel. Charge up your shot just like that. And there you go. Like I said, I'm not sure if they nerfed this barrel, so I don't know if you can actually wall bang through quite literally anything from anywhere on the map. But in case you can't, go ahead and give it a try. We're looking at the SL Razorhawk laser light for max sprint to fire and ADS speed. We're looking at the Icarus light stock for ADS and sprint to fire speed. The quick bolt for rechambering speed. Add even more damage to this thing. We're looking at the anti-material slug. Now, don't worry, if this barrel is nerfed and you can't wall bang through anything, got you guys covered with another build. So just take off the barrel and go with the same laser, the same stock, the Icarus light stock, the same bolt, the quick bolt, and then I personally got the SPX 80 6.6x optic, and then I have the OP980 grip. That's the build, just in case you guys need to screenshot it. Let me know what you guys think. Now, if you guys couldn't tell, it's pretty typical to build your long range meta for maximum bullet velocity and range and recoil control. But with that being said, that is it for today's video. That is my top 5 long range meta loadouts for Warzone Season 3. Give these builds a try, make them your own, and let me know what you guys think down in the comments. While you're here, though, I'm sure you're going to need a close range meta to go with those long range weapons. So I got you covered. Check this video out.